What's up, you guys? Welcome back to another video. I'm here with my homie Eric. Hello. We got Chris, we got his girlfriend. We are at Casino Miraval in Monterrey. I just ordered some amazing shish kebab. Eric, how do we say shish kebab in Mexican?
Alambre.
Alambre. In Spanish, not Mexican. That's coca. We're spilling water. It's a disaster. But the action is going to be as crazy as we are right now on the table. We're playing the equivalent of 5-5. Give me the catchphrase.
La mejor de Monterrey. Bang!
Let's go! Action here is amazing. Let's get right into it. I'm in for 60,000 pesos. Vamos! Bang! This is day 2 in Monterrey. If you haven't already seen my vlog from day 1, I'll link it at the end of this video. Be sure to check that out. But as for now, we are hopping into the live stream, and immediately I get rewarded with Pocket Kings. We have 50,000 pesos in our stack, and I raise it up to 400. Cholitos, the guy in that funny mucha lucha wrestling mask, whatever you want to call it, he puts in the call with 9-8 suited. And Alan puts in the call as well. He's the guy with the black clover hat on. We are going 3 ways to a flop, which comes Queen, Jack, 6 with 2 clubs. Alan checks to me, and in between 2 opponents, I usually start with a check. It also helps that this board is pretty wet. When I check, Cholitos decides to bet out with 9-8 suited for 750. And Alan gets out of the way. Could be going for a check raise here some portion of the time. But if he's betting out on this flop, I think he's going to bet the turn. I have to be careful, though, of just calling here and another club, a 10, an ace, or peeling off and putting us in a weird spot. Still, I play this one a little passively, put in the call, and we see a turn card, which comes the 8 of spades, bringing in the front door draw of 10-9 suited. I check it once again, and Cholitos now decides to bet for 2,000 pesos into the 2.8k pot. I think here probably would be a good spot to raise. Would we get called by worse? Yes, I think a lot of the suited clubs would call us. There's also some hands like King Queen, maybe King Jack. Hard for him to have some of those because I have 2 kings. Still, I think a raise here is probably the better play, but instead I just put in the call. And we see an interesting card on the river, the Jack of Diamonds. I check it over for a 3rd time, and Cholitos checks it behind. I turn over my cards, and it looks like his graphics were wrong here in this first hand. He had ace queen offsuit. So yeah, that was a pretty bad card. I could have got more money there with my check call, but instead we get rewarded with a 6.8k pot straight out of the gate. If it wasn't a jack on the river or a club, we would have got paid a little bit more, but you could see how a check raise on the turn or the flop might have been the best move. Still, moving right along into the next one here, I'm in the +1 position with Pocket 10. That is 10-10 for you non-Spanish speakers, and I raise it up to 400 pesos. Cholitos going to get active here with Pocket Kings. Will he come in for a raise? Will he just call? He decides just to play it tricky and call here, which is a little concerning for me. Hopefully I don't get into too much trouble. That brings in 2 other players as well, Alex and Cosme. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. We are going 4 ways to the flop, and I flop myself a gutter to a straight flush, Queen 9-8 all hearts. You can see, though, that both Alan and Cholitos both like this flop with the ace and king of hearts in their hands. The action checks over to me. I'm not going to be betting on this board. And Cholitos, will he decide to bet? Yes, he does. 1.5k in the middle. And Alan is going nowhere. Interesting, he didn't decide to check raise on this board with the nut flush draw. But when it's over to me, I'm closing the action. The Jack of Hearts on the turn would be an amazing card. It would give me the nuts. Alan would think he has the nuts, and we'd play a huge pot for stacks most likely. I decide to close the action by putting in the call. And just like that, we are going 3 ways to a turn. Turn doesn't change anything for me, but it now gives Alan the best hand with a pair of aces. And when he has the best hand, he decides to lead out into the field. 6.1k out there, and he decides to bet for 3.5. If any heart peels off on the river, I might not have the best hand, and I'm only drawing to the Jack of Hearts or maybe a 10. Either way, though, not a good call from me. I decide to fold, and the action's over to Cholitos. An overcard, but he still has the draw. He puts in the call, and we are going to see a river, which is a disaster for Cholitos. It comes the 5 of hearts, giving him the second nuts. 13k in the middle, and Alan cuts out a huge bet of 11,000. I think a big bet like this might let Chilitos get away from it, but he didn't put that mask on to fold for 11,000 pesos. He puts in the call, sees the bad news, and yeah, I see that if I would have turned a jack of hearts, that would have been probably a 100K peso pot there. Either way, nice hand, you guys. All right, in this next hand, Chris raises it up to 400 pesos. Chris, what is a Chris guy doing down here in Monterrey? Well, that's German moneymaker. He plays on the Dallas streams. And yeah, he found himself all the way down here in Monterrey and actually was the catalyst for me coming down, invited me out here, told me it was a fun, safe action game. So yeah, shout out to Chris for inviting me down here. And yeah, he raises up to $400. Alan puts in the call with ace-9 offsuit. Actions on me, I have ace-deuce from the big blind. I decide to defend, and we are going three ways to an ace-high flop, ace-queen-8 rainbow. I check. Chris decides to bet his range here on this one, and Alan has a pretty easy call. I think I shouldn't be folding, so I put in the call with my pair of aces, and we see a 10 of diamonds on the turn, bringing in Jack-King. Also Jack-9, and the backdoor diamond draw becomes apparent as well. Still, I'm not going to bet out here. I do have the ace of diamonds in my hand, blocking some draws, so players are a little bit more weighted towards strength. Still, I'm going to check. Let's see what Chris decides to do with the king of diamonds in his hand. He checks it over to Alan, who has a pair and a gutter to a straight, and he decides to bet out into the 2.5K pot to the tune of 1,300 pesos. Pretty weak line from me and Chris by checking it over to Alan. Might be betting some draws here like king 9, maybe some diamond draws. I don't think I can fold just yet. I put 1.3K in, and Chris gets out of the way with his second pair, bringing in a 6 of spades on the river. Really doesn't change too much. None of those draws on the turn got there. I check it over to Alan. He quickly checks behind. I turn over my ace, expecting to be good when he doesn't value bet the river, but unfortunately he turns over a better ace, and he's winning the third pot of the night. All right, beautiful hand here. Ace-king offsuit from the +2. I start out with a raise. Chilitos puts in the call, and Alan is going to come in there with king 4 offsuit. Book your one-way ticket to Monterey. King 4 offsuit in the mix. And we see a board of 9-6 deuce with 2 clubs. I have the ace of clubs in my hand. The action checks over to me, and not exactly the best board for my entire range, so I decide to check it behind, bringing in the 7 of hearts on the turn. And Chilitos bets out for 600. Alan gets out of the way, I get out of the way, and even though that's a simple hand, just wanted to throw it in to show you not all the hands are super interesting. Sometimes you're going to raise it pre-flop, have both of the opponents smoked in terms of ranges, but yeah, checking back on the flop was probably the move. Don't exactly know what Chilitos had there, but giving that one up, moving along into the next one where I get rewarded with pocket aces, the weapons of mass destruction, sharp tops, American Airlines. We are in Mexico. I wonder if there's a Mexican name for pocket aces. Yeah, I actually come in for a raise here. The graphics are wrong, and Alan is going to defend out of the small blind. We are going heads up in position to a flop, which comes queen 4 deuce rainbow. Alan checks it over to me, and I bet out for 500. It's not an overbet. It's around 2/3 the size of the pot. Alan gets out of the way though, so 2 interesting hands there back to back. Ace-king, not getting any value there and actually losing the pot. Pocket aces, flopping herself an overpair and not getting any more value. Hopefully things can improve in this next hand where I look down at 10-8 of diamonds. The 200 and 400 peso straddle are both on, and we see an initial raise here up to 1,200. That's Eric. He puts in the 1,200 raise. Chilitos calls with 7-5 suited. We have Andy and myself all putting in the additional money. And Cha does as well with their ace-deuce suited. We are going 5 ways to the flop. And you can see by the equities, it's pretty much anyone's game here. Although Chilitos has the equity advantage with 7-5 suited. And the board comes 9-9-3 rainbow. The action checks to me. I'm not going to be doing much here. I have a backdoor straight draw, backdoor diamond draw. Action checks through on the flop, bringing in the 3 of spades on the turn. And when no one bets out on the flop and the action checks to me on the turn, I decide to fire out here and try to get everyone to fold. You can see there's a lot of equity here. I only have 8%, so that means the other 92% is with the other players. If I get any sorts of folds here, it would be huge. And 2.5K is the price if they want to put in more money. You can see no one really has anything too good here. So kind of a great bet by me in hindsight. This should clean up all of the other players. But unfortunately, Andy is going to get a little sticky here and puts in the call with his 2 overcards and flush draw. We're going off to the river, which comes the 5 of clubs. And if Andy checks it over to me on the river, I think I'd fire out once again. I can't just be betting the turn and giving up. I think it's doubtful he would have checked on the flop and turn with a 9, given the spade draw out there. So yeah, if he checks to me, I'm betting big. Instead, though, he bets out small, a blocker bet of 1.5 thousand pesos. And now my brain is kind of in the blender. Why is he betting so small? Like I said, I'm not really putting him on a 9. Could he have 3s? Could he have a hand like ace 3? Could he have a busted spade draw? It just doesn't make too much sense. What if he has pocket 7s or pocket 6s and wants to get to a cheap showdown? All of those hands, they wouldn't love to see a raise, so sometimes you gotta go with your read. That's what I decided to do. 1.5 bumped up to 7,000. I probably could go a little bit larger if I'm trying to get a hand like 7s or 8s to fold. Still, I'm going to raise it up to 7,000 pesos and just go with my read here and hope that I'm right. And sure enough, Andy makes the pretty quick fold. Look at that. I'm taking down that pot there with 10 high, a 20,000 peso pot straight out of the gate. For every 1,000 pesos, it's around 60 American dollars. So that was a $1,200 pot there. Let's freaking go. Alright, moving right along, I find myself in this next hand with king 6 of spades. I raise it up to 400. And let's see who puts in the call here. Why not Chilitos with the mask, putting in additional 300 pesos. Is Alan going to put in the call as well? No, he does not. We are going heads up with Chilitos on a 9-4 deuce board with 2 spades. Pretty great for me. He checks it over to myself. And kind of a board that I want to continue putting money in. I decided to put in 500 into the middle. And Chilitos has the Robbie. Not exactly sure if he's aware of what the Robbie is. But yeah, he's actually not going to put in the 500 pesos. Instead, he's going to check raise me 3 times my bet up to 1,500. What is he representing here? Does he understand this isn't exactly the best board for my range? Well, yeah, Jack 4, he has second pair. He's going to put some aggression in there and see what happens. Good news for me, though, is that I have king 6 of spades, so I'm going nowhere. I have some backdoor draws, front door spades. I put in the call, and we see the 7 of hearts on the turn. Chilitos now does something pretty aggressive and rips it all in for 7.6. There was only 4,000 in the middle, so yeah, that's an overbet. Nearly double the pot. I'm not getting great odds here. You can see I only have around 33% to win this. So his almost double pot shove here isn't giving me the correct odds to call. And that's if my king is live. Obviously I have front door spades, but my equity is also considering that I have any of the other 3 king outs, right? If I'm putting him on a hand like pocket 9s or pocket 7s, pocket 4s, my kings aren't live, so my equity actually goes down. So even though this feels kind of wrong to fold the king high flush draw, that's what I decided to do. And yeah, he had the best hand there with a pair of 4s. We then end up playing a double board PLO bomb pot. I call 1,000 on the flop. Alan bets 2.5K on the turn, and I put in the call. I have some ideas here. I have trip 8s and a gutter to a straight. River jack and ace don't really improve anything for me. I don't pick up any of those flushes. Alan checks it over to me, and with the backdoor clubs getting there, I happily check behind. Look at that. We're going to 3/4 him. We both have 5-7 on the top for a straight. On the bottom, though, my pair of deuces going to take that one down. 7.5K out of this 10,000 peso pot is coming over to me. All right, I'm in the big blind in this one. There is an open to 400 by Alan in the cutoff. Andy calls with ace-8 offsuit out of the small blind. Actions on me, queen 9 off. I'm going to put in the additional 300. And you can see that the 200 and 400 straddles are both on. Shah puts in the call. Does Eric? Nope, he's going to raise it up to 1.9k with ace-5 offs. A little side note about Eric, myself, and Chris, German Moneymaker, is that Chris and I had a side bet. This morning, we went to an expensive breakfast. It was around 100 American dollars, and we decided whoever beat Eric out of the largest pot would be safe from paying for breakfast. The other player obviously would have to cough up the $100. So yeah, definitely incentive here for me putting in a call here and trying to play a big pot with Eric. Chris had already won, I think, around a 4,000 or 5,000 peso pot. So I haven't beaten Eric in one yet. So I decided to defend here with queen nine off. You can see that I'm smiling in this one. Eric knows the dynamic of that game. And queen nine off, definitely not the best hand, but when I put in the call and flop myself top pair, that feels pretty great. And I check it over to Eric. He confidently tosses in a decently large bet of 1.9k once again. Do I go for a check raise and try to protect my hand against some overcards? Do I just put in the call? I decided to go for option number 2, just put in the call, and we see another 9 on the turn. Bang! We turn trips. Eric is absolutely smoked. I think I have the check mark in this one, and I check it over to Eric once again. It's a smooth check. Hopefully he puts more money in, trying to blow me off some sort of hand like 3-4, ace-4, maybe a hand like ace-deuce. I mean, I don't think he can put me on too many 9s unless it's like 10-9 suited or ace-9. He's definitely not going to see this one coming. When I check it over to Eric, he continues betting. Music to my ears, 4.6k. And now the question is, do I go for a check raise or just call and let him hang himself on the river? I think allowing him to bluff on the river is by far the best option. If I raise here, he's just going to fold with any of his mediocre hands and any of his draws, like 6-7 or 7-8 having a gutter. However, if I check here, he can still bet a lot of his overpairs on the river as well. That's what we decide to do, and we see the 6 of clubs on the river. Gonna smooth check it over to him once again, and he snap checks back, which is not great news. I turn over my 3 of a kind, and we're gonna take down that 18k pot. Look at how stoked I am, letting Chris know that he's on the ropes here to pay for breakfast. Winning a pot, free breakfast in Mexico, drinking beers. Life is good. Life is so good that they had an additional mask. So yeah, for the next few hands, we are not going by Wolfgang. Instead, El Wolfgang or Lobo or something in Spanish. Only fitting that if there's 2 masks on the table, 7 deuce is gonna come out to play, and I decided to raise it up to 400. Somehow, someway, we are going 5 ways to the flop when Eric, Chris, Cholitos, and Alan all put in the call. We flop ourselves bottom pair on an ace-3 deuce rainbow board, and Chris decides to lead out for 1,000 pesos. Cholitos, Alan, and myself all put in the call, which allows Eric now to go for a raise up to 4.5k. He has top pair with a decent kicker. I don't blame him for doing that. Chris is going to put in the call. Cholito somehow calls here with a pair of 3s. That clears out Alan and myself. So unfortunately, I could not get that 7 deuce bluff through, but we do have to fade another thing here. Remember Chris and Eric. I don't want Chris to win this because then I'd owe $100 for breakfast. Let's just play this hand out here. The action checks through on the turn, giving Eric 2 pair on the river, ace-10, and Chris now decides to lead out into Eric and Cholitos into the 17.5k pot. It's a hefty one, 12,000 pesos. Cholito snap gets out of the way. Action's over to Eric. I mean, he has 2 pairs, so I want him to put the money in. I mean, what can Chris have here? He let out on the flop. It's possible he has pocket deuces or pocket 3s. He could also have 4-5 suited, I think. Other than that, I don't think he's going to have aces or jacks or king jack even. Eric does put in the call, and Chris ends up winning that one with a set. Unfortunately for us, that is not good news. We're going to lose the breakfast bet. And with that last hand in the books, that is going to wrap up this live stream from Monterrey, Mexico. If you guys want me to come back out here in the future, I'm already itching to go back. Let me know down in the comments. If you guys play in Mexico, anywhere else, let me know as well. Who knows? Maybe I'll get out there and play with you guys in the streets. But as for now, let's bring it to the outro. All right, here's the deal. We just arrived back in the United States of America. Monterrey was super fun. We ended up playing till 5 in the morning last night. 5 in the morning, and then I had to get up at 10 for the flight today, but ended up booking a nice little profit there of 9,000 pesos in around 6 to 7 hours of play. We played a few hours after the live stream ended as well, so that 9,000 peso profit is around 500 bucks. All in all, a super cool experience. Shout out to Chris, German moneymaker, a friend that I met here in Dallas that transcended borders. He can only do half the year in the US, and then he has to go to a different country or back to Germany for his visa. But yeah, he went to Monterey, met cool people that are running the game at Miraval Palace in Monterey, and invited me out there. I said yes. I love new experiences, and yeah, made 9,000 pesos in 2 days. I think in the future I'm gonna go back. Johnny Vibes already hit me up that he wants to go. Maybe I'll get Rosie from Next Gen, who knows? It's gonna be a fun time regardless of who comes. As always, thanks for watching these videos. If you like me going to different places and experiencing new things for you guys to watch, let me know down below. Good luck on the felt, you guys. Back in Dallas, you can expect a lot of 510, 1025, and 2550 coming right up. I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.